It's fight night between me and this Mk1 Audi TT, and today's round 2. So today I got to pull off the trans and I have to inspect the clutch and flywheel to make sure that I can either reuse it or I'm going to have to order a new one. I know most people would just order a new one just so they don't have to go back in there, but I'm a little tight on this TT budget, if you know what I mean. So we're going to pull the transmission, inspect the clutch and flywheel, and we're gonna start removing some of the stuff from this engine and putting it onto the other block that I have. Let's do it.
This is going to be no small task. Keeping these bolts in order is going to be crucial when going back together, since the bolts are all different lengths and sizes. There are 8 bolts that hold the bell housing to the engine, but pulling this transmission off is going to be different for me as opposed to taking it out in the car, which requires the subframe to be removed. But I still have my concerns.
Now what I'm concerned with is having any sorts of transmission issues at the end of this. That's what I'm really concerned about. Ooh. One starter removed. Nice and juicy.
God.
Look how juicy that is. It's so good.
Yeah, we love it when our starters are powdery.
Yeah.
With the starter removed, I was starting to get a good look at the pressure plate, but I still have a bit to go to get a better look. Well, a bit more than I thought.
Oh my God, it's a different size too. Son of a bee snatch. Beeswax? Bees tack? D's gnats? D's ass quacks. Yeah, it's coming. That's the way to do it right there. Don't drop, please. How much do you trust your Harbor Freight engine hoist? I don't trust any engine hoist, no matter where it comes from. I skipped this one on accident. I ended up just taking out the one from right below it, so I'm gonna make sure I don't screw that up in this lineup here. There we go. The little 1.8T that could. Look at it go. I probably could have spread these out a little bit more, but I didn't.
Well, you didn't necessarily know exactly how many.
This is true. Okay, I think we're, oh God, I think we're mostly out. Yikes. You know what that means? It's time to hate my life. When you're removing this transmission, you have a bunch of them that bolt down to the engine block, but you also have this over here, which I believe is called a bevel box, but this is where your drive shaft connects to go to your rear wheels for a quattro system. So this is essentially a transfer case. This is what sends power to the rear wheels via the drive shaft here. And if you don't want to unbolt this from the transmission, you have to unbolt it from the engine block, which there's a bolt here, and then there's a bolt down here, which I have already removed. And this will come off with the transmission. Now, I mean, this also sends power to the front wheels too, because your differential's right in here, in this part of the transmission. So you have both axles right here and here to connect to your front wheels. But I believe with the front wheel drive models, they don't have this. They just have a longer axle to hook into the I think so. Anyway, I could be wrong. So if you want to call me an idiot in the comments, that's totally okay. Because I'll agree with you, so. Oh, okay, it's coming out by hand, that's great. Beautiful. We love that for us. Yeah, that's great news. Now hopefully this trans doesn't just fall out. And that was the last bolt, I believe. So now it's just a tug-a-thon to get it off of the engine. Just like the great Ricky Bobby, we're just gonna send it. Is that another bolt? I reckon it is. I do reckon that that is a problem for us. Ah! Oh, hey, another bolt. That one goes into the trans. Look at me go. It's up in here, which is lovely, but it's reverse. It's this way instead of that way. So, we're gonna try and take that off now. I didn't make this easy for a reason, so you break more stuff and buy more parts. The crazy part is that the transmission is already separating. This was the last bolt.
Huh. That's good.
Sort of. With it being in the air, it might just fall out like you said. Let's not talk about it.
Do you want to put another bolt on the top? Like halfway.
Nah. Full send.
All right.
Fully send it.
I mean, what do I know?
That bolt's got to come off too, which is right here. There we go. That's much better. Oh. Oh yeah. These are the last two brackets, or bolts for this bracket, which was what I was removing this whole time. A couple more bolts that needed to be removed for this stupid bracket to basically F off.
There she is. Oh, there she is.
There we go.
Foot. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
Do you need a hand?
Nope, we're okay. I got it. Oh, there we go.
My God.
This is where your clutch fluid goes in to hydraulically control this throwout bearing / slave cylinder. But yeah, look at that. That's actually not too bad. Wow. Here it is. We got it out. My God. And wow, this pressure plate looks fairly new. That's actually impressive. But if I'm not mistaken, yep, this is a Vallejo single mass flywheel. Well, now that I know it's the Vallejo single mass kit, it makes sense as to why we had a little bit of clutch chatter.
Right. So
if you go with a single mass kit, you're gonna have a little bit of clutch chatter. Don't worry, it's not your engine blowing up. It just sounds like it. So I think now that this is off, what needs to happen is that this needs to get cleaned because it's absolutely disgusting. Like, absolutely disgusting. It is so gross. I mean, there's bits of wiring harness stuff. It's just an oily, sludgy, greasy mess. This is gonna take some hours, for sure. Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Yeah, scratch that, Captain. I think we might have to get a clutch and flywheel. Let's see here.
Oh.
Good God. Yeah, that flywheel has seen some better days, hasn't it? There's some hot spots. We're gonna move on to tearing everything down and putting it onto the new block. Do some cleaning, definitely clean this trans, and we'll do that. So now that we got the transmission all cleaned up and ready to go, well, not entirely ready to go. I still got a couple of things that I gotta change the slave cylinder. I gotta change, clutch and flywheel, but that's gonna be down the road a little bit. So we are going to start working on swapping everything over to this 127,000 mile block. I got everything off the back side of it here so that I could lay it on its side. And then I think the first step I'm gonna take is the oil pan. We're gonna work on swapping the oil pan. I have a brand new oil pump and pickup tube that's gonna go in this engine, and we're basically gonna piece by piece it from there. So once I swap that over though, I'm gonna move this block over there next to the old one. That way it's not so difficult to swap everything over and get it on a chain and get it back in the car. So I'm gonna pop this on its side now. Here we go. Okay. Oh yeah, this is gonna be not easy. Yep. Okay. Oh God. There goes some fluids. Wow, that thing is heavy. Okay. Whew. So these TTs actually have a common issue of getting super gunky. As you can see, it definitely lives up to its name. Yeah, these tend to end up having sludge buildup. Probably because it's in desperate need of a catch can system. So we're going to swap this all with some of my stuff, which looks a lot more silver.
How's that pickup? That looks pretty clear, actually.
It's got some schmutz in it.
Yeah,
a little bit, but it's relatively clear. Yeah, definitely wasn't starving too much. But these do have pickup issues where they get clogged up in here, and it kind of starves the engine of oil, which is no good. But luckily I have a new one of those. Oil pump. There we go.
Next, I moved on to replacing the rear main seal on this new block, which comes off with a few bolts going around and 2 on the very bottom if your oil pan is still attached. I cleaned the surface and installed the new one. The plastic in the middle that comes on the new one is a guide to ensure a proper seal. Do not remove it prematurely. Torque spec is 10 Newton meters or 88.5 inch-pounds. Next up is the oil pump and pickup tube. What I found worked best for me was rotating the gear and slowly working the chain on. There are 2 bolts that hold the oil pump in and 1 bolt that retains the baffle. They get torqued down to 16 Newton meters or 142 inch-pounds.
Oil pump is in. Pickup, or baffle, and pickup is also in. We're about ready for the pan. That's it. Do I have enough caulk? No. 2 inches minimum. Sorry, 2 inches maximum. So. I'm white. Yeah. It's my cross to bear.
I cleaned up the mating surface of the oil pan with a brass brush and gave the entire thing a brake clean bath. After making sure there was no more yuck, I resealed the pan with RTV and then bolted it back to the block. 20 10mm bolts torqued to 15 Newton meters or 11 foot-pounds.
Can finally move on to getting that engine over there next to the old engine to start swapping some stuff over. Engine jobs, they always teach me a lot about patience. They teach me that I don't have any patience.
Next, I took off the bracket holding 2 knock sensors and the crankshaft position sensor. I also removed the turbo feed line on top of the housing. Once that was out of the way, I removed the oil cooler off the oil filter housing with a 27mm nut. Finally, I removed the 4 10mm bolts holding the oil filter housing to the engine, which gave me access to the coolant pipe right above it. I installed the coolant pipe onto the new block with a new O-ring which sits inside of the thermostat housing area. This pipe distributes coolant from the engine to the oil cooler, heater core, the radiator, and various other spots. It gets bolted down in one spot on the front of the engine and one spot on the side. I reinstalled the intake manifold bracket. And then, with a fresh gasket, I reinstalled the oil filter housing. Next up is the oil cooler. Now I would recommend getting a new one because if this fails, it could cause oil and coolant mixture. I did not because I know this is a known good one for now. I reinstalled the 2 knock sensors on the block and bolted the bracket down, which is a 10mm on the side and a 13mm on the top of the housing. Don't forget to run your crankshaft position sensor back down under and bolt it into its home before moving on. It has an O-ring, so make sure it seats properly and then tighten it down. I highly recommend this Mishimoto 180°F thermostat to lower the coolant temps from the usual 188 degrees. Also, the aluminum thermostat housing adds that extra reliability compared to the stock plastic ones that tend to crack after aging. Time to swap over the accessories to the new engine. I started by removing the accessory belt tensioner and the belt itself. Removing the alternator takes some persuasion, and so does the AC compressor, so just take your time and try not to damage anything in the process. It's 2 bolts for each of them, and the AC compressor has a spacer behind the bolt closest to the timing components on the top. There are 6 8mm Allen bolts holding this bracket onto the engine. I did not have to remove the power steering pump at the bottom to take the bracket off of the engine, but I did find a lovely rounded out Allen bolt to give me a little bit of a hard time. I gave the bracket a good cleaning and reinstalled everything onto the new block.
Okay, so this is a super crucial part in the process of swapping everything over, and that would be the timing belt and the head. I made sure that this mark right here at the bottom here, this is the crankshaft mark, lines up with the mark on the timing cover, and then this mark here on the camshaft lines up with the valve cover mark. There's a little notch in the valve cover here. Now that means that the engine is at TDC. And now I'm good to remove the timing belt and tensioners and stuff like that to start swapping over these components to that engine. This is very crucial because if I get it wrong, I could potentially plow my brand new valves into the pistons. So every time you do timing belts and you think you got everything right, put your 19 mil for this engine, in this case, on the crank and rotate it around a couple times. Make sure it doesn't bind, it doesn't stop. Double check your timing, always, always, always. So I'm gonna start taking this off. That way we can move these components over to that engine. And then we're gonna work on getting the head off. And then I think we're almost on to some mods. This is not gonna look like your conventional TT because I have Integrated Engineering's manual tensioner upgrade. So this more so looks like the 2-liter version. You're gonna have a hydraulic tensioner probably about right here. It'll sit, and it's kind of the same steps to taking it off. Just remove it once you get the belt in TDC, and you should loosen your tension up a bit. Crucial piece to the puzzle. There we go. Okay, now your belt is super free.
I removed the 4 6mm Allens holding on the crankshaft pulley, and then 2 10mm bolts to remove the timing cover. And then finally, the timing belt comes off with ease. Next, I remove the valve cover and intake cam baffles to start removing the cylinder head to swap over. There are 10 head bolts that are an M10 Ribe socket, which is not to be mistaken with Torx or Allen. Remove the bolts in a reverse torque sequence so you do not warp the head surface. Next, I just used the engine hoist to lift the head off, and what I found inside was terrifying. Prior to episode 1 of the rebuild, I put in forged connecting rods and attempted to hone the cylinders with a triple-arm stone tool and installed new piston rings to go along with it. This was my first attempt at something like this, and it turned out looking okay, but when I ran it a few times, it ended up being a failed attempt. Honing a cylinder is supposed to create a cross-hatch pattern to allow new piston rings to seal and help to retain engine oil to keep up with proper lubrication. These heavy-looking scratches in the cylinder wall were probably causing some extreme piston ring wear versus actually sealing well. But hey, I had to try it to learn it. Maybe I can learn from a pro in the future, but this is what a crosshatch pattern is supposed to look like. On to assembling the timing components, starting with the crankshaft gear. I got a new one because my old one is seized. Use the key on the crankshaft to line up the key on the new gear. Then use the supplied Loctite on the new 19mm 12-point bolt and tighten it down to 90 Newton meters or 66 foot-pounds plus a 90-degree turn. Next is a proper upgrade which I already had, a metal impeller water pump. The genuine Audi ones have a plastic impeller, so this is a good upgrade for some increased reliability. The stock ones tend to break apart and go all into the cooling system. These three 10mm bolts for the water pump get torqued down to 11 foot-pounds or 15 Newton meters. Next, I installed a fresh OEM head gasket which only goes on one way according to the dowels. Finally, we lowered the head down onto the new block, but be careful not to scratch the surface with these dowel pins on the back side of the block. With brand new head bolts, install them in this torque sequence starting with 29.5 foot-pounds and then 90 degrees, and then another terrifying 90 degrees to follow. Lastly, I put the engine in TDC and marked the new crankshaft gear according to the timing cover and the pulley marks. Next up is the IE manual tensioner reinstallation. I tightened up the bracket and roller, and then it was onto the tensioner itself.
There's this one right here. My stud muffin.
You're a stud muffin.
Nope. I'm not. Goes on here like yay. And then this goes on here like yay, and then yay, and yay. Washer and nut, and then you don't tighten this down until this is what controls your belt tension right here. This is the integrated engineering tensioner. And these two little pins here is what adjusts your tension on the belt. And then when you get it at the specified tension, you tighten this sucker down.
When installing the belt itself, move the crankshaft back about a tooth because the tension from tightening the tensioner will pull the crankshaft forward a little bit. Sometimes you'll be off a tooth or so, and you'll have to move the belt forward or backwards a tooth depending on your scenario. Check the tension on both ends of the belt after snugging the tensioner down to be sure it's not too loose on either side. With this tensioner, the spec for tension is 90 degrees worth of flex side to side.
Feels good. Very good. Okay, that may or may not be it. Because now I got to check the marks to make sure that we are still in the correct spot.
Which means putting the valve cover back on.
Yeah. Which means valve cover and this cover, just to verify that we are in the right spot. And then I got to rotate it around to be double sure that nothing kisses, because I'm a nervous Nelly, as anybody should be when they're dealing with timing, because timing is no joke. And it's no fun when you mess it up. This is not really the place to make a mistake. If you do, and it's not catastrophic, then that's great. Just proceed with caution, because, yeah. I'm off. Look at that. I done goofed it.
My first try had me out a tooth on the crankshaft. When I tensioned the belt, the crankshaft overshot the TDC mark, so I had to remove the tension, back up the crankshaft a bit more so when I tightened the tensioner, it would line up perfectly.
Fidgety with it. Yeah. We'll just see what happens. Looks smack dab on to me. Next, I just have to make sure that this is tight right here. Yep. and then I'm going to rotate this sucker around, see if anything kisses. That is the only way to test. That's 2 full rotations right there. I'm going to do 2 more, just be certain. But I think we're pretty much good to go.
I was going to say, we're going to do it about 70 more times, just in case.
I buttoned up the rest of the timing components and reinstalled the lower timing cover. Everything on this side of the engine is pretty much ready to go, so I installed the engine mount bracket and reinstalled the serpentine belt. As a victory lap for all the progress, I decided to put the coil pack adapters and coil packs back in their home, aka make more progress. Join us in the next episode where we mod this TT before we even know if it runs. Give us a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see more motorsport shenanigans. See you next time.